Nexus Station, 7 hovered in the void like a colossal ring of metal and radiance, its segmented structure glittering as ships drifted in and out of its countless ports. Home to more than 50,000 residents belonging to dozens of species, the station served as one of the galaxy's busiest crossroads. Part market, part embassy hub, part uneasy experiment in shared civilization. In the civilian residential district, the Torrance family had carved out a quiet life. Marcus Torrance stood before the wide observation pane of their living suite, hands clasped behind his back as he watched freighters glide toward the docking lanes. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and moved with the unconscious alertness of someone who had spent years expecting danger. For 15 long cycles, he had served in the Human Defense Coalition. After retiring from active deployment, he accepted a civilian position as a strategic security advisor for the station. His wife, Yuki, was an engineer with a reputation for solving mechanical problems others consider hopeless. Her calm, meticulous nature made her well-liked among her alien colleagues. Their daughter, Emma, was 8, bright, curious, and endlessly fascinated by the station's multicultural residents. Emma possessed a blend of her parents' traits. Her mother's dark hair, her father's sharp eyes, and a fearless curiosity that sometimes got her into trouble. She loved living on Nexus 7 because every hallway held someone new to meet. She could greet her friends in a dozen alien dialects and was proud of it. Their morning began like any other. Emma wolfed down breakfast while her small hovering companion, a spherical robot she affectionately named Zippy, buzzed around the kitchen emitting cheerful tones. Marcus reminded her, as he often did, not to wander into restricted areas. Yuki kissed Emma goodbye before heading to the maintenance decks. Emma left for the education center with Zippy zipping ahead, trailing playful blue light. The promenade at this hour was a river of life. Tall, feather-crested Aeolian strode gracefully Nexus short, rock-body Kryn. The 6-legged Pelthrians glided smoothly between vendor stalls. Aromas of alien food drifted through the air. Holographic advertisements shimmered overhead. Among the crowd, the imposing Vraxian constabulary kept watch. Nearly 7 feet tall with slate-gray skin and razor-edge features, the Vraxians served as a primary security force appointed by the Galactic Council. Strict, disciplined, and often humorless, they upheld order with unyielding adherence to rules. Many humans found them intimidating, sometimes outright hostile. The Vraxians, for their part, viewed humanity as newcomers still climbing toward true civilization. Marcus had warned Emma repeatedly, be polite, be respectful, but keep your distance when you can. Emma didn't always remember, especially when Zippy saw something shiny and zoomed off. Zippy slowed down, she laughed, chasing after the little droid. She didn't see the Vraxian officer until she collided with him. The impact knocked her backward. The officer, Craven, a high-ranking enforcer notorious for his merciless interpretation of every regulation, had been carrying an ornate data tablet, the kind used by elite Vraxian officials. The device struck the ground with a sharp crack, its crystal interface splintering. Emma gasped, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. I was just... Zippy flew ahead and... Craven stared at the shattered tablet, his expression twisted into contempt. You reckless little human creature, he growled. You dare damage the property of an officer? I can get my mom to fix it, Emma stammered, voice trembling. She's an engineer. She can... Craven's hand moved faster than she could flinch. The back of his palm struck her across the face with brutal force. Emma lifted off her feet, crashing onto the cold floor. Pain exploded through her nose as blood streamed down her lips. Her vision blurred. The bustling promenade fell into stunned silence. Dozens had witnessed the blow. Some froze in shock. Others quickly looked away, unwilling to confront a Vraxian officer. A few humans ran toward her, but none reached her before someone else did. Marcus. He had been trailing his daughter from a distance, giving her freedom but keeping an eye on her. The moment he saw Craven strike, something primal surged through him. His training snapped into place. He closed the distance like a launch projectile. Before Craven could turn, Marcus seized the alien's arm, twisted it behind his back, swept his legs, and drove him face first into the floor. Marcus knelt on his spine, holding him immobile with controlled but unmistakable fury. "Don't move," Marcus said, voice like steel on ice. "Someone call medical, now." Humans rushed in. A woman knelt next to Emma, pressing a scarf to her bleeding nose. Within minutes, station security arrived, and what happened next shocked every human present. The medical team arrived quickly, but Vraxian security arrived even faster, and their reaction stunned the onlookers. The squad leader, Officer Talvin, scanned the scene with an expression that gave nothing away. His gaze landed on Emma, still trembling and bleeding, then on Craven pinned beneath Marcus. He did not seem surprised, outraged, or even curious. His face was stone. "Release Officer Craven immediately," Talvin ordered. Marcus stared at him in disbelief. "This man assaulted my daughter. She's 8 years old. She apologized, and he hit her hard enough to—" "Release him," Talvin repeated, one hand already drifting toward the weapon holster at his hip. The humans in the crowd murmured angrily. Several stepped closer to Marcus, ready to support him. But Marcus could see more Vraxian officers arriving, armed, rigid, and already sizing him up as a threat. His daughter needed help more than he needed revenge. With slow, controlled movements, he lifted his knee off Craven's back and raised both hands in the air. Craven stood shakily, brushing off his uniform as though he were the victim. "I want this human arrested," he snarled, "for assaulting an officer constabulary." Marcus could only stare at him, stunned by the audacity. "He hit my daughter," Marcus said, voice shaking with rage. Everyone here saw it. Talvin's eyes swept across the crowd. "Did anyone witness the supposed assault?" he asked, with a tone that made it clear what answer he expected. Many aliens looked away. A few slipped quietly into the flow of traffic. Only humans stepped forward. "We saw it," one said firmly. "He struck her." "The child apologized, and he hit her anyway," said another. But Talvin dismissed each testimony with a curt wave. "The child collided with Officer Craven and destroyed valuable property," he recited mechanically. "The officer administered corrective action. The human male then attacked a law enforcement official. Arrest him." 2 Vraxian officers grabbed Marcus. He didn't fight them. He couldn't risk escalating the situation with Emma still bleeding on the floor. As they cuffed him, he locked eyes with Craven. "This isn't over," Marcus whispered. Craven smirked. Emma was rushed to the station's medical wing. Yuki arrived minutes later, nearly collapsing when she saw her daughter's bruised and swollen face. Emma was sedated, but even in sleep she whimpered, small hands clutching the blanket like she expected another blow. When Yuki learned that Marcus, not Craven, had been taken into custody, something inside her snapped. She was normally calm, logical, soft-spoken, but now her voice shook with a fury she had never felt before. She marched straight to the station administrator's office. Administrator Velto, a cautious Pelthrian with 6 slender limbs and nervous eyes, greeted her with superficial sympathy. "I understand your distress," he said, tentacles curling anxiously. "But Officer Craven is granted diplomatic immunity. A citation will be issued for excessive judgment. Your husband will be released shortly with a warning." "A citation?" Yuki's voice cracked. "He broke my daughter's nose. She weighs 30 kilograms. She could have died." Velto avoided her eyes. "The law is clear. The matter is resolved." It wasn't resolved, not for Yuki, not for Marcus, not for Emma. From there, Yuki went to the local representative of the Galactic Council, Zixara, a tall crystalline being whose voice resonated like chimes. But the response was no better. "Your child's injuries are minor by interspecies standards," Zixara said calmly. "Among many species, such force is considered trivial. So because we're more fragile, it's acceptable to hit us?" Yuki asked. "That is not what I said," Zixara replied. "This appears to be a cultural misunderstanding rather than a crime. I recommend you accept the Council's decision." Yuki left the office shaking, feeling like every door in the galaxy had slammed shut. She returned to the hospital. Marcus had been released and was sitting at Emma's bedside, eyes red with barely contained fury. Yuki collapsed into his arms. "They're not going to do anything," she whispered. "They don't care. They think it's a misunderstanding. Marcus stared at Emma's bruised face. There has to be a way, he said quietly. Someone must care. Yuki nodded slowly. There is one more option. Earth. She sent a detailed report through official diplomatic channels, but also sent a private copy to her brother, who worked deep inside the Human Defense Coalition's communication network. 2 days passed. No reply. Then, on the third day, Yuki received a single encrypted message from an unknown sender. Confirmed. Package en route. ETA, 72 hours. Marcus read it. His jaw tightened. Someone's coming, he said. For us? Yuki whispered. For Emma, he replied. And for justice. Far out in deep space, beyond visible sensors, a small human ship slipped out of FTL, silent, anonymous, and carrying a mission that would change everything. The transport that approached Nexus Station, 7 looked utterly ordinary, almost deliberately so. It bore the dull, civilian markings of a mid-range human cargo vessel, nothing to suggest the weight of what it carried. Traffic control approved its docking request without a second glance, unaware that this unremarkable ship was the quiet beginning of a storm. Its name did not appear on any public registry. The vessel was called the Consequence. Within hours of docking, Administrator Velto received a notification that representatives from Earth were requesting an urgent meeting. His stomach tightened. He had hoped the entire Torrance incident would simply fade under bureaucratic dust. Instead, humanity had responded. Swiftly and with precision, his assistant asked, "Shall I stall the administrator? Perhaps claim you are occupied." Velto hesitated. Humans rarely appreciated being put on hold, and after everything he had read about them in recent days, he suspected delaying would be a poor strategy. "No," he said finally. "Send them in." The office door slid open, and 6 humans entered. Velto had seen humans before, curious, emotional, animated, but these were different. They moved with quiet purpose, their eyes scanning the room without seeming to. 5 wore simple gray uniforms with no insignias, yet their bearing made Velto's spine stiffen. The 6th, a woman in a black diplomatic suit, stepped forward. "Administrator Velto," she said, extending her hand. "I am Commander Sarah Chun, Human Defense Coalition. This is Lieutenant James Park, Judge Advocate General. We are here to address the assault on Emma Torrance." Velto shook her hand awkwardly. Her grip was firm, not aggressive, but solid enough to communicate that she did not play games. "I was under the impression this was a civilian matter," Velto said carefully. "It became a military concern," Chin replied, "when station authorities failed to provide justice for a human citizen." They seated themselves around the conference table, though seated seemed the wrong word. The 4 soldiers standing behind Chin remained alert, still as carved stone. Lieutenant Park activated a holo display. Security footage, medical scans, and official reports appeared in organized layers. "We reviewed all evidence," Park began. "An 8-year-old child, weighing barely over 30 kilos, accidentally collided with Officer Craven. She apologized immediately. Craven responded with severe force, resulting in substantial injury. Velto tried to recite the line he had been fed. The officer's tablet was damaged, and the child was... "She is a child," Chin said sharply, though her voice remained calm. "Not a threat, not a criminal. A child." Park continued, "We have 17 witness statements, including 12 from non-humans, corroborating the assault." Velto's throat tightened. He had hoped they wouldn't find all those witnesses. "Officer Craven holds diplomatic immunity," Velto said. "We cannot hand him over." "Diplomatic immunity," Chin replied evenly, "does not cover violent crimes against juveniles. You had an opportunity to address this. You chose not to. Therefore, the Human Defense Coalition formally requests custody of Officer Craven for trial under the Sapient Juvenile Protection Act." Velto's heart pounded. That act is not recognized by the Galactic Council. Chin nodded slowly. Then perhaps the Council should reconsider what it recognizes. She leaned forward. "You have 24 hours. Transfer Officer Craven into our custody, or we will obtain him ourselves." Velto swallowed hard. And if we refuse? Chen stood. The other humans mirrored her instantly. Then you'll discover the meaning of our ship's name. They left without another word. After the door closed, Velto sank into his chair, trembling. He contacted Zixara and Commander Vither immediately. Both dismissed Chen's warning as bluster. They will not risk open conflict for a single officer, Zixara insisted. Vither even laughed. 6 humans? On my station? Let them try. But Velto was no longer convinced. That night, he stayed awake, reading everything he could about humanity, especially their response patterns when children were endangered. What he learned chilled him. Humanity's history overflowed with examples of extreme action taken to protect their young. Hostage rescue missions, impossible assaults to extract a single juvenile, entire governments mobilized over one missing child. It wasn't rational by galactic standards. It was instinctive, primitive, unpredictable. And now that instinct was aimed squarely at Nexus Station 7. Meanwhile, Craven appeared on the station's news network. His interview was dripping with contempt. The child was careless, he declared. Humans pamper their offspring. I barely touched the little creature. He smirked on camera. A few more like her, and humanity might finally learn discipline. Those watching across the station felt a cold fury settle into their bones, especially the humans. On the consequence, Commander Chen watched the broadcast. Her expression did not change, but the armrest of her chair creaked softly beneath her grip. He has no idea, Park murmured beside her. No, Chen said calmly. He doesn't, but he will. Outside the station, invisible to every sensor, a human stealth array drifted into position. The countdown to the 24-hour deadline had begun. The final hour of the deadline approached like a tightening noose. Administrator Velto paced frantically across his office, sending message after message to both Zixara and Commander Vither, urging them to reconsider. Each reply was dismissive. Do not capitulate to human theatrics, Vither insisted. They bluff. They posture. They will not violate council territory. Velto wished he believed that, but the more he reviewed human history, the more he realized humans rarely bluff when children were involved. With only minutes to spare, Velto made a desperate call to Earth's central diplomatic office. A weary-looking ambassador answered, offering polite sympathy but no assistance. If Commander Chen is on site, the ambassador said, she has authorization from the highest level of human command. Velto swallowed. So you will not stop her? Administrator, the ambassador replied gently. Earth will always choose its children first. We tried diplomacy. You refused. I recommend giving them what they want. The call ended. Velto stared blankly at the wall. Then the countdown hit 0. For exactly 3 minutes, nothing happened. Zixara forwarded him a smug message. See? Humans bark loudly, but bite softly. Vither sent an equally confident one. Threat neutralized. Velto almost dared to hope. Then the lights flickered. They dimmed, went dark, then snapped back on in emergency mode. Every screen on Nexus Station 7 switched to a single broadcast. Commander Sarah Chun, her expression steady, composed, and terrifying in its calm. This is Commander Chun of the Human Defense Coalition. Our 24-hour request has expired. We attempted diplomacy. Now we protect our citizen by other means. Her voice remained level, almost gentle. Residents in Sector 7A through 7D. Evacuate immediately. You have 5 minutes. Panic rippled through the station. Civilians scrambled toward exits, unsure whether this warning meant bombs, raids, or something worse. In reality, the humans wanted no civilian harmed, but fear spread faster than truth. Craven was in his private quarters when the message played. Outrage surged through him. These primitives dare threaten us, he roared. He grabbed his communicator. Dead. The lights flickered again. His door panel became unresponsive, trapping him inside. Open this door, he bellowed. I am an officer of the constabulary. Obey! No response. Then he heard it. Muffled shouting, thudding impacts, the distinctive snap of stun rounds. But no screams. No death cries. Just precision. Craven backed away from the door, suddenly unsure. The explosion that blew the door inward wasn't lethal, more like a focused shockwave that threw him off his feet and filled the room with smoke. Before he could rise, 3 armored figures swept inside, their movements controlled and frighteningly fast. Human soldiers. They spoke perfect Vraxian. "Officer Craven," the lead soldier said, "you are under arrest for assaulting a juvenile. Come peacefully or be carried. Choose." Craven lunged for his holstered weapon, but one soldier was already there, grabbing his wrist, disarming him, pinning him before he understood what was happening. Another pressed a compact device to his neck. His body went limp instantly. Subject subdued, one soldier reported, proceeding to extraction. Craven was hoisted effortlessly and carried into the corridor. What he saw next shattered his certainty. A dozen Vraxian officers lined the hall, everyone unconscious, unharmed but incapacitated. Not a drop of blood spilled. No bodies. No carnage. The humans had moved through a fortified section of the station, like a whisper. They reached the airlock where a human shuttle was already docked. Its access codes overridden, its presence somehow hidden from station sensors. Within seconds, Craven was secured aboard, and the shuttle detached smoothly. Total time since breach, 18 minutes. Commander Vither burst into Security Command Center moments later, red-faced and raging. "What happened? Where are my men? Where's Craven?" "They took him," his deputy said, pale, "in 3 coordinated teams. They used non-lethal force. They hacked our doors, cameras, even oxygen sensors. They were everywhere and nowhere." Vither slammed his fist onto the console. "Track that shuttle. Ready to intercept ships. I want them stopped." But the shuttle was already accelerating toward a ship in high orbit. The consequence. The station finally detected the vessel, but far too late to respond. Then the sensors revealed something else. 2 human destroyers. 4 frigates. All waiting silently. Vither stiffened. "We outnumber them," he said. His technician swallowed. For now, as if summoned by those words, more signatures appeared. 6 ships, then 8, then 12. Within minutes, nearly 30 human warships formed a protective sphere around the consequence. Vither's confidence died. This was planned. In space, the message was unmistakable. If you want Craven, come through all of us. Earth had not come to negotiate anymore. Earth had come to collect justice. On the bridge of the Vraxian flagship, Commander Vither stared at the tactical display, unable to comprehend what he was seeing. The human ships formed a tight defensive net around the consequence, every frigate angled perfectly, every destroyer positioned with surgical precision. Not one vessel wavered or drifted. It was a trap they had prepared before they even arrived. "What are their demands?" Vither barked. His communications officer swallowed. "They repeat the same message, sir. Do not interfere with our custody transfer." Vither's jaw clenched. Custody transfer? They abducted a constabulary officer. As if in response, Commander Chen's voice suddenly echoed to the Vraxian Command Center speakers. The bridge crew jumped. She had somehow gained access to their encrypted channel. "Commander Vither," Chen said calmly, "your officer is not a hostage. He is under arrest. Attempting to retrieve him by force will result in conflict you cannot win. You have no authority here." Vither roared at the screen. "Authority was yours to exercise," Chen replied, "when a child was assaulted under your jurisdiction. You failed. We are correcting that failure." The feed cut off. Vither stood frozen for a moment before slamming his fist onto the console. "Mobilize reinforcements. I want warships." But a new message flashed across his screen. "Vraxian High Command, do not engage. Return to defensive posture. Council will resolve." Vither stared in disbelief. "We're backing down? Over human child?" His second-in-command said softly, "Sir, look at the tactical readings. If we engage, we will lose." Vither stared again at the human fleet. Cold, disciplined, unshakable. For the first time, he understood what Velto had feared. Humans were not bluffing. Aboard the consequence. Craven regained consciousness inside a containment cell, spacious, brightly lit, and undeniably more humane than the holding cells used on his own station. His wrists ached, his pride more so. Lieutenant Park stood outside the transparent barrier, holding a data tablet. "Officer Craven," Park said, voice measured, "you've been medically cleared. Your trial will begin within 72 hours. "This is illegal," Craven snapped. "I demand return to my jurisdiction. You cannot imprison a protected officer." Park did not raise his voice. Diplomatic immunity does not cover violent assault against a juvenile. And even if it did, immunity is a privilege, not a shield against cruelty. He tapped the tablet. "This is justice, Officer Craven, not vengeance. A concept you may not be familiar with." Craven slammed his fist against the barrier, but the gesture lacked the confidence it once held. For the first time since the incident, fear settled inside him. The humans weren't torturing him. They weren't taunting him. They were simply proceeding with absolute conviction. That terrified him far more. Back on Nexus Station 7, in their apartment, Marcus and Yuki watched the unfolding events on the news feeds. Emma sat curled between them, her small hands gripping her father's sleeve. The footage showed the human fleet forming its shield, the Vraxian ships retreating, and council members reacting in shock. "Will there be a war?" Emma whispered. "No," Marcus said softly. "Not today." Yuki brushed Emma's hair gently. "The humans aren't here to start a war. They're here to finish what the station refused to." Emma looked down. "Are they going to hurt him?" "No," Yuki answered firmly. "But they will make him answer for what he did." Emma nodded slowly. She didn't fully understand, but she understood enough. Someone powerful cared about her. Enough to come all this way. Enough to stand up for her when others wouldn't. For the first time since the assault, she felt safe. The Galactic Council meets again. The emergency session was chaos. Many species shouted for consequences against humanity. Sanctions, military pressure, trade isolation. The Vraxian delegation demanded Craven's immediate return, but others, surprisingly, sided with the humans. A Calarian representative addressed the chamber. "For too long, diplomatic immunity has allowed abuse. Humans acted because we did not. They showed more integrity in 48 hours than this council has shown in half a century." Several delegations murmured agreement. The human ambassador spoke last, voice steady. "We will not return Officer Craven. He will face trial. If the council wishes to discuss reforms, we welcome it, but the verdict for this case will stand." The chamber fell into stunned silence. For the first time in years, the council felt outmatched not by brute force, but by moral conviction backed by overwhelming readiness to act. Meanwhile, in orbit, the human fleet held position, silent, watchful, resolute. Earth wasn't asking permission anymore. Earth was setting a precedent. 3 days later, humanity held Craven's trial aboard a secure coalition judiciary vessel. The proceedings were recorded, translated into 12 common galactic languages, and broadcast publicly, an unprecedented move, meant not to humiliate the Vraxians but to demonstrate transparency. Emma did not attend in person, but she watched from home with her parents. Medical patches still covered her nose, and her cheeks were faintly bruised, but her eyes were steadier now. Judge Aldrin, a stern but fair-looking human with silver hair, presided from the tribunal podium. "Officer Craven," he began, "you stand accused of assaulting a juvenile, misuse of authority, and endangering a minor. You will be permitted representation and the right to speak." Craven's attorney, a highly skilled advocate provided by the coalition to ensure fairness, stood beside him. But even the attorney struggled to defend what the recordings clearly showed. The holographic footage played, Emma apologizing, Craven lifting his arm, the brutal strike that sent her tumbling. The room grew cold. Many watching looked away. Craven spoke only once. "She damaged my property. Discipline was warranted." Judge Aldrin leaned forward. "A child apologized, and you responded with violence. On what world is that discipline?" Craven had no answer, not one his attorney could use. The verdict came swiftly. Guilty on all counts. Sentence: 10 years confinement in a reform facility, mandatory behavioral retraining, and permanent revocation of interstellar enforcement privileges. Craven's eyes widened with fury. He seemed genuinely unable to comprehend how a human court had judged him. He was escorted away, shouting demands that no longer carried weight. The trial ended. The galaxy erupted. The aftermath across the stars. The Vraxian Empire declared the ruling an insult, but their response lacked real heat. Every military strategist across the council had seen the human fleet. They understood what had gone unsaid. Do not cross the line again. Other species, however, reacted with unexpected admiration. A Lurvathi diplomat publicly stated, "Humans defend their young fiercely. This is not weakness. It is honor." A coalition of smaller species proposed a new regulation: no diplomatic immunity for crimes against juveniles, regardless of species. The idea gained enormous traction. Humanity had started a movement without firing a single shot. Back on Nexus Station 7, life slowly returned to its usual rhythm, though nothing was quite the same. Emma walked the promenade again, this time with Zippy floating close and dozens of familiar faces offering warm greetings. The aliens she passed treated her with surprising gentleness. A Kryn vendor even offered her free sweets, bowing respectfully. "Little human strong," he said. "Little human brave." Emma smiled shyly. Marcus returned to duty, though with a sharpened awareness of how quickly things could go wrong. Yuki resumed engineering work, but her colleagues viewed her with new respect. After all, her message had brought an entire fleet. Yet the biggest change was on the station security force. A new council directive required mixed-species patrols, and any officer accused of harming a minor, human or otherwise, would face immediate suspension pending investigation. Craven's absence loomed like a warning. The Vraxians still carried themselves with pride, but their arrogance had dulled. They avoided confrontation. They filed reports more diligently. They communicated more respectfully with civilians. Actions, it seemed, had consequences. Humanity's final message. Before the human fleet departed, Commander Chen requested a final closed-door meeting with Administrator Velto. When they met, Chen's demeanor was calm, almost gentle. "Administrator," she said, "we did not come here to conquer or intimidate. We came because a child was harmed and the system failed her." Velto lowered his gaze. "I understand that now, and I apologize for not acting sooner." Chen nodded. "Then let this be a turning point." She slid a hollow chip across the table. "What is this?" Velto asked. "A cooperative proposal. Shared training programs. Cross-jurisdiction child protection protocols. A better system. One in which no species has to send a fleet to defend a child." Velto's hands trembled as he picked it up. This could change everything. Chen smiled softly. "That's the idea. A quiet ending." When Emma learned Craven had been sentenced, she didn't cheer or gloat. She simply asked her father, "Does this mean he won't hurt any more kids?" Marcus kissed the top of her head. "Not anymore." Emma hugged Zippy tightly and whispered, "Good." That night, the family sat together by the observation window, watching the human fleet slowly break formation and jump to FTL one by one. Silent Guardians returning home. The last ship to leave was a consequence. As it vanished into the stars, Nexus Station, Seven understood something it hadn't before. Humans were not the strongest species, nor the richest, nor the oldest, but when it came to protecting their young, they were unmatched, and the galaxy would remember that.